You're standing in front of a mirror, but something's off. The reflection looks like you, moves like you, but it doesn't feel like you. It smirks when you frown. It nods when you hesitate, and when you turn away, it doesn't follow. It stares at your back with silent contempt. You've done this before. You've made a promise to yourself, felt the fire of conviction, and broken it. You've sworn to cut ties with toxic people, to pursue what you truly want, to stop living like a ghost in someone else's story. And yet somewhere along the way you retreat, again and again and again. What if the person who betrays you the most isn't your partner, your friend, your boss, but the one hiding behind your own eyes? How can someone so desperate for healing be the very architect of their own suffering? You want to grow, but sabotage your progress. You want to speak truth, but bite your tongue. You crave freedom, but cling to chains. Is this weakness? Is it fear? Or is it something deeper? Something most people are too afraid to face? Why do you become your own enemy at the worst possible moments? And more disturbingly, what if a part of you wants to lose? This isn't just a psychological glitch. It's a war inside your identity, and it's far older than you think. Let's go deeper into the hidden reasons behind your silent betrayals and the ancient shadows that whisper in your mind when no one's watching. Deep beneath your everyday decisions, beneath your words, your routines, your image of who you are, there lives something older, more primal, and far less obedient. The shadow. Carl Jung called it the shadow self, not because it is evil, but because it is unseen. Buried in the unconscious, the shadow is composed of everything you deny, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge about yourself. It contains your rage, envy, desire, fears, and forgotten potential, not because you consciously reject them, but because society, culture, and your own survival instincts taught you to hide them. From childhood, you were conditioned to behave, to please, to be good. But goodness came at a cost: authenticity. You learned that certain emotions were bad, certain thoughts dangerous, certain truths unacceptable. So you split in two, becoming the version of yourself that is safe to show, while burying the rest. But the shadow does not disappear just because it is denied. It festers, it waits, and eventually it leaks through the cracks, causing self-sabotage, anxiety, numbness, or aggression. Every time you betray yourself, part of your shadow is reaching for the surface, desperate to be seen. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that. Your inner war, the reason you keep breaking your own promises, is not random. It's scripted by parts of yourself you don't even know exist. Nietzsche understood this too. He believed that modern morality suppressed the human will to power, turning strength into guilt, passion into shame. The more you pretend to be pure, the more you secretly hunger for the chaos you pretend to condemn. Arthur Schopenhauer went further, claiming that the human will is a blind, insatiable force, irrational and untamed. He believed we are often puppets of desires we don't even understand. And so you betray yourself not because you're weak, but because you are divided, torn between who you think you should be and who you truly are. The war between your persona and your shadow is not a flaw. It is your starting point, the place where true transformation begins. But be warned, the shadow doesn't just want to be acknowledged, it wants integration. And without it, you will always feel like your worst enemy is you. Now the question becomes, what happens when the parts you've buried start shaping your reality? You go through life thinking you're in control, making choices, setting goals, trying to improve, but something keeps pulling you back. You sabotage progress, lash out at people you care about, stay in relationships that deplete you, repeat patterns you swore you'd never return to. And still you wonder, why does this keep happening? The answer is unnerving. The parts of yourself you've disowned aren't dormant. They're steering the wheel from the shadows. Neuroscience has confirmed what Jung intuited. The unconscious mind governs over 90% of your behavior. While you believe you're choosing rationally, You're often reacting to past wounds, suppressed emotions, or hidden fears. These unseen forces shape your identity, distort your self-image, and dictate the way you interpret reality. Cognitive biases like confirmation bias, projection, and self-serving bias are the smoke signals of a mind in conflict. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as your shadow needs it to be. Take projection. When someone irritates you for being arrogant, it might not be their arrogance at all. It could be your own unexpressed confidence, buried long ago, clawing its way out through resentment. You criticize in others what you cannot accept in yourself, and thus the shadow plays its game. It keeps you blind to your own depth by disguising itself as the world around you. Culturally, this problem is amplified. We live in a society obsessed with the curated self. Social media demands perfection, politeness, and perpetual positivity. But real healing requires the opposite: rawness, discomfort, confrontation. Instead, we're taught to bypass pain with dopamine hits, to medicate symptoms instead of exploring their origins. The result? A world full of people who smile in public and scream into pillows at night. A collective shadow reinforced by shallow culture, surface-level therapy, and the myth that success means being unbroken. And all the while the shadow watches. It whispers in your ear during moments of silence. It hijacks your words when you're triggered. It shapes your habits, fears, addictions, and desires, not out of malice, but because it's tired of being locked in the basement of your psyche. The scariest part? You can't fight what you won't face, and what you won't face and will rule you. But what if you could stop running? What if, instead of fearing your darkness, you met it eye to eye and listened? That's where everything starts to shift. It begins not with motivation, but with radical honesty. Not the kind you perform to seem authentic, but the kind that shatters illusions. The kind that forces you to sit with uncomfortable truths. The kind that says, yes, I betrayed myself, again and again and again. This is the first act of rebellion, to stop pretending you don't know what you're doing to yourself. Carl Jung didn't say to destroy the shadow, he said to integrate it. That means you must be willing to turn around, descend into your own unconscious, and ask the question most people avoid: what part of me am I afraid to meet? The modern world will never teach you to do this. Self-help culture offers hacks and habits, but it rarely challenges your identity. It tells you to improve, not unravel, to think positive, not dive into the abyss. But growth isn't always shiny. Sometimes it looks like breaking down in solitude and realizing the enemy you feared was a forgotten part of you, begging to be understood. Integration is not perfection, it is wholeness. And that means embracing your anger, your lust, your grief, your jealousy, not to act on them blindly, but to learn from them deeply. Ask yourself, who benefits from me staying divided? What do I gain by betraying myself? What power am I afraid to step into? Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." The rebellion is not about conquering the chaos. It's about dancing with it, listening to it, letting it teach you what your curated self refused to admit. Gabor Mate, who spent decades treating addiction, discovered that most self-destruction is not about weakness, it's about pain that was never allowed to speak. When you listen to your pain instead of numbing it, you start reclaiming your power. So how do you break free? You stop running, you stop blaming, you stop shaming the parts of yourself that were created to protect you, even if they now hold you back. You realize that betrayal ends not with force, but with awareness. And once you're aware, you get to choose. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consciously. And in that space between awareness and action, something sacred begins. A rebellion of the soul, a reunion with yourself. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest. You've feared this place your entire life. It's where your doubts live, where your shame echoes, where every part of you that doesn't fit was exiled long ago. You've spent years avoiding it, lighting candles of affirmation, building fences of self-discipline, reciting mantras that pretend the darkness isn't there. But the truth? The forest was never your enemy. You were just never taught how to enter it. This is the final and most powerful realization. The self you keep betraying is the self you abandoned. All those times you said, "I don't know why I do this," you did know. At least, some part of you did. The wounded child, the repressed instinct, the voice that was silenced before it ever got to speak. Carl Jung didn't say healing is about becoming good. He said it's about becoming whole. And wholeness means integrating the monster, the lover, the rebel, the coward, the child, the cynic, the dreamer. The parts you labeled bad didn't disappear. They just became your shadow. But here's the paradox. What you thought was your enemy, your fear, your anger, your addiction, was actually the guardian of your truth. It stood in the way not to destroy you, but to demand your attention. It wanted you to see that the way out is in. The final betrayal isn't cheating yourself of success. It's refusing to meet the part of you that could unlock everything. So here you are, on the edge of the forest. Will you keep running, blaming, splitting yourself into fragments for the comfort of others? Or will you walk in, eyes open, heart steady, and say to your shadow, "I see you. I know why you're here. Let's go home." Because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world convinced you to hide. And that truth, the raw, untamed, unacceptable truth, is not something to fear. It is your key, your guide, your liberation. So if you're tired of betrayal, of fear, of living as a stranger to yourself, then stop fighting your reflection. Start listening to it, because the moment you stop being at war with yourself, you become unstoppable.